The Art of Letting Him Burn, Part 4. The Collapse. Elena's silence had always been his safety net. In the past, when he strayed too far, forgot an anniversary, snapped at her for something trivial, stayed out later than he should, her quiet forgiveness had been his shield. He relied on it. He expected it. But now, that same silence was becoming the very thing that unraveled him. It started small. At dinner, she would look at her phone instead of him. When he spoke, she responded with vague nods, her eyes somewhere else. If he mentioned plans, she simply said, "Sounds nice," without enthusiasm. Mark noticed. "Are you upset with me?" he asked one evening, his voice tinged with unease. Elena glanced up from her glass of wine, face calm. Why would I be? The simplicity of her question disarmed him. But it wasn't the words that haunted him. It was her tone, light, airy, indifferent, as if he didn't matter enough to stir her emotions anymore. For the first time in their marriage, Mark felt like he was the one being ignored. Meanwhile, Elena's web tightened. She arranged her finances with meticulous care. The hidden account grew larger by the week. A quiet consultation with a lawyer confirmed what she already knew. She could leave him with enough leverage to ensure he wouldn't come out unscathed. But Elena wasn't rushing. She wanted him to feel it, to sense the shift, but not to be able to stop it. She began dressing differently, sharper, more deliberate. She went out more often, coming home late with excuses as vague as his had once been. And every time he asked, she smiled sweetly and said, "Don't worry about it." The irony wasn't lost on her. Mark's composure began to crack. One Thursday, he came home earlier than usual, expecting to catch her at home. Instead, he found the living room empty, the soft hum of music drifting from her laptop still open on the table. She returned an hour later, flushed from laughter, her hair windswept. "Where were you?" he demanded. "Out," she replied smoothly, setting her bag down. "With who?" She tilted her head, lips curling faintly. "Does it matter?" The question cut deeper than any accusation could have. For a moment, Mark stood frozen, struggling to mask the fear that flashed across his face, because suddenly the roles were reversed. Elena's revenge wasn't theatrical. It wasn't about shouting matches or throwing his clothes out the window. It was death by 1,000 cuts. Small, precise, intentional. At parties, she smiled too brightly at other men's jokes while Mark sulked at her side. She posted photos of herself out with friends, laughing, vibrant, alive. She stopped asking him about his late nights. She stopped waiting up. And Mark, once so confident in her devotion, began to falter. He snapped more easily, raised his voice at trivial things. "Why are you always out?" he asked one night. "Why were you?" she countered, her tone level, her eyes steady. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, unable to form an answer. Elena turned back to her book, dismissing him without another word. That dismissal burned more than any fight ever could. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. Mark stumbled into the kitchen one morning, hungover and irritable. Elena was already dressed, sipping coffee, scrolling her phone. She looked radiant, untouched by his chaos. "Who were you with last night?" he demanded suddenly. Elena raised an eyebrow. "Last night?" "Yes. You didn't come home until midnight." "Who were you with?" She set her cup down, gently, leaning back in her chair. For the first time, she allowed a small, cold smile to slip through. "Funny, isn't it?" she said softly. "When it's you, I'm supposed to trust. When it's me, you panic." The silence stretched. Mark's face twisted, a mix of anger and fear battling for control. "What are you trying to do, Elena?" he snapped. Her gaze never wavered. "I'm just living my life." And in that moment, he knew. She was slipping from him, and he had no way to stop it. At ceramics class that evening, Elena carved delicate patterns into a vase, each groove intentional, permanent. Her instructor admired it. "You've gotten sharper," she remarked. Elena smiled faintly, running her finger along the design. Sometimes sharp is exactly what you need. Mark thought he had broken her. He didn't realize she was letting him burn, piece by piece, in the silence he had once relied on. And soon she would walk away, leaving nothing but the ruins of his arrogance behind.